The Hockey Hall of Fame announcements are coming momentarily. Is Duncan Keith in? He better be. What about Steve Larmer? What about Cam Russell? Probably not. We'll react to the news live as it comes in and preview the draft today on CHGO Blackhawks. Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast. It's hot. It's Tuesday, but a lot happening today as we lead into the NHL Draft.
Yes.
Lots of good stuff going on, including an imminent Hall of Fame announcement. Duncan Keith?
Yeah, it's happening right now.
Probably.
we don't have TSN on the screen.
No,
but
got to get that VPN going.
Yeah, Hockey Hall of Fame announcement coming up right now. I mean, look, if you talk about first ballot Hall of Fame Blackhawks, Duncan Keith is right there at the top.
He has
of
to
the
be.
list.
I'm not even getting mad until it doesn't happen. We're also going to talk about the NHL Draft with Jérémi Plourde of McKeen's. Jérémi is an expert on the QMJHL, so focusing a lot on Caleb Desnoyers and some of the other prospects in the queue, including Bill Zonin, who might be there at 25 when the Blackhawks pick on Friday. So with all that in mind, we're keeping an eye on our social media, waiting for the Hall of Fame announcement. But I'll say this, like you just said, Mario, he has to be in. There's no way you can look, if you consider yourself an authority on hockey, and that's what the Hall of Fame committee claims to be, there's no way you can look at Duncan Keith and say, no, this guy is not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Conn Smythe, Norris Trophy, 3 Stanley Cups, best defenseman of his generation, arguably the best defenseman in the franchise history of the Blackhawks. That is a 100-year history. If you missed the news, he's got to be in first ballot. There's no doubt about it. Anything less would be a crime.
And yeah, and there's a couple guys from that same era that are all first up now. Zdeno Chara, Carey Price, they're Keith, like they're all from that era. And I mean, bias aside, I think Duncan Keith is I'd say a little bit more accomplished as far as Hall of Fame resume goes than Zdeno Chara, but both of them equally, I'd say, impactful for their organizations over the course of their careers.
Keith's better.
I mean, you look at some of the defensemen that are in. You look at some of the guys that he's up against. Like you have to put him up there at the top of the list. I'd be, again, I'll be shocked and outraged appropriately over the next 10 minutes if he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. But I think that's going to be the case.
Windy City Hockey mentions that Eddie Olczyk is on the selection committee. I wonder if that has any sort of, Steve Larmer's a guy that's been knocking on the door forever. Feels like it's well overdue. Another guy I think of that was not a Hawk that's well overdue is Alexander Mogilny. I wonder if we'll see those guys get in this year. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Keith Tkachuk's another one.
Yeah.
As mentioned by Thomas, and I wonder if the attention on Matthew and Brady lately will add to that a little bit. I mean, to me, Keith Tkachuk's a Hall of Famer for sure. One of the premier power forwards of his game. Scored 50 goals in an era where 50 goals almost never happened.
I mean, I think you kind of opened up that conversation when you put Jérémi Roenick in.
Correct.
So I think you're changing the expectation. You're changing the criteria, and you look at Keith Tkachuk's resume. It lines up pretty equally to Jérémi Roenick's of that time. So I think his son's having success and having him in the public eye and his name brought up more and more often, that makes an impact. I mean, the amount of just discussion around your around your career and name recognition and popularity and all that, like that does take some account. And outside of Tab Bamford, the Steve Larmer drum is not the one that's being banged the most for the Hall of Fame, I'd say, outside of Chicago. Yeah. But I mean, Tkachuk, like he's a guy that's got league-wide recognition. McGillney is a guy that league-wide recognition, and even that is one of the weirdest cases of not being in the Hall of Fame. So we'll have to see how they rectify that. I mean, that should be done. And the goalie cases too. I mean, when you put in some of the guys, what was it? Tom Barrazzo was in,
yeah,
and Grant Fuhr was in, and you look at Carey Price. He doesn't have a Stanley Cup, but like his numbers were incredible, and he was one of the best, top 3 goalies of his era, and one of the best to just not have a cup. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. Still keeping an eye here on the internet.
I'm going to go through the first time eligible guys and tell me yes or no on these guys.
Ooh, I love this game.
Joe Thornton.
Yes.
We already talked about Keith. You just talked about Carey Price. I'm a yes on Carey Price.
Me too.
Chara, we talked about. I'm a yes. Ryan Getzlaf is not a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Not first ballot.
Tuukka Rask, not a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Ballot.
Dustin Brown, not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Eric Stahl, not a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Not first ballot.
If Tuukka Rask gets in the Hall of Fame, Corey Crawford should be in the Hall of Fame.
100%.
I don't want to hear anything about Rask.
100%, absolutely. Like, if you put Rask in, you have to put Crawford in.
Yeah.
If you put down the line, if Jonathan Quick ever goes in, I know Lundqvist is in, right? Didn't they put him in?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, if Lundqvist, if Price is in, like, you got to have Crawford in there. He's got 2 things that Lundqvist and Price don't have: Stanley Cups and comparable numbers as far as save percentage, goals against. The longevity of his career in the NHL wasn't the same thing, but I mean, you look at the Stanley Cups, like that's a huge factor for some of these considerations. So I don't know. I think and Lundqvist and Price getting in, like, that's justifiable for sure. Rask is like feels on that cusp, same as Crawford. But if he's in, if Rask is in, Crawford's got to go in.
They're putting out the announcements now. So far, the players inducted: Jennifer Botterill and Zdeno Chara. Those are the first 2 graphics.
Interesting.
From the player category.
Botterill's a slam dunk.
Oh yeah, 100%. So we'll keep an eye on it. They're going to drag this bad boy out as long as they can.
Well, they once the announcements roll in, they usually go pretty quickly.
All right, from Mark Lazarus, Duncan Keith is official first ballot Hall of Famer, 100%. Friend of the show, Duncan Keith, is a Hall of Famer. Huge news.
Yeah, he was just here.
Just here. You're welcome for the boost, Dunk.
Yeah.
If not for us.
The CHGO bump lives on.
They probably would have forgotten about him if not for our visit.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed being in they showed on the Taves video that the Jets put out. Mm-hmm. They used our interview with Duncan Keith.
They used the clip of him talking about it, yeah.
So I say this all the time, but I know people don't see every show. I think if you want to make an argument for the Hawks don't win a single Stanley Cup, if this guy's not on a team, to me, the answer to that question is Duncan Keith. It's not Taves. It's not Kane. It's not Hossa. It's not Seabrook. It's Duncan Keith. If he is not on this team, they don't win a single cup.
He is my all-time favorite Hawk, and I think what he brought to the table, being able to just be so good that you kind of just forget about his contribution sometimes because you don't have to worry about him. He was never a talking point of concern, and you just say, "Oh yeah, don't have to worry about him."
Yeah,
like exactly what you're going to get out of him. It was special being able to, see his career and see the success he had, and especially talk about like they don't win any cups. They don't get where they got to in 2015 without him. The year he won the Conn Smythe. Out of the 10, 13, and 15 cup runs, I'd say the easiest Conn Smythe was that 2015 one for Keith.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yep.
2013, Kane won it. You could make a case for Corey Crawford. You could have made a case for Brian Bickle. 2010, it was Tays. You could make a case for multiple guys on that 2010 team. But 15 was hands down. They don't get anywhere close to where they got without
I forget
Keith.
which NHL coach said it. Boy, who was that? It doesn't matter. They said when Duncan Keith was on the ice, you just eliminated half of the rink.
Mm-hmm.
You just knew that his side was unavailable, and you had to figure it out. And then guess who was on the other side?
Usually Brent Seabrook.
Brent Seabrook.
Yeah.
And if you got past him, or if you happen to get past Hossa and Taves first, then you get to Seabrook and Keith. I mean, he was such a huge part of things here. Here is the full Hall of Fame class.
Not to derail the Keith conversation, but one of the guys we were talking about before is in.
Yeah, so here's the full player class of 2025. Duncan Keith, Zdeno Chara, Joe Thornton, Jennifer Botterill, Brianna Decker, and Alexander Mogilny finally gets in.
Yeah.
He deserves it. Alex Mogilny deserves to be a Hall of Famer. I know maybe you missed him a little bit.
I never saw him.
Yeah, I mean, he was...
But the stories of his career and just the numbers, they speak for themselves for sure.
Trying to think of like a modern day Mogilny.
Like always seemed to be one of the best players on one of the teams that just didn't have a ton of success.
Yeah, I would say like Panarin is more of he was a little more, I know it's crazy to say, but he was a little more skilled than Panarin. Maybe Kucherov? Like that,
Kucherov,
a lot of speed. And him and Pavel Bure were, oh my God, those two guys together. The speed those guys had together, and it was, Trevor Linden centered them for a lot of their careers. Mogilny long overdue. But again, for another year, Steve Larmer is on the outside looking in, which is tough.
That's tough.
You just don't want a guy like that to have to, not to get dark, but like...
You just don't want it to be too long.
You want him to be around to see it.
Right.
And he deserves to be. And I think the fact that he was just kind of a go about his business kind of guy, doesn't try to pump himself up or campaign for it, or he doesn't cry about it when it doesn't happen. That might be hurting him a little bit, but man, the more Hawks you can add to the list, the more of a chance that Steve Larmer has. But again, he won a Stanley Cup with the Rangers. Where's the New York media? You'd think between Chicago and New York, you could drum up enough outrage to get it done.
Get Larry Brooks on it. Yeah, I mean, you'd imagine it'd be there, but I mean, yeah, he's one of those guys. It's one of those cases where, all the boxes seem to get checked. 1,000 games played, 1,000 points, Cup winner. Was one of the longest Ironman streaks that there's been in the league. A guy that was. An icon of the team in the era that he played for with the Hawks in the 80s and 90s. He's got, he won the Selke? Calder. One of the two.
Excuse me.
Troy Murray won the Selke. Steve Larmer won the Calder. Did he not?
To the internet.
82, 83? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I will.
So he's got, he's got an individual award on his resume.
Yeah,
like
82, 83 Calder.
There you go. So yeah, I mean it's a guy that checks all those boxes. It just seems like he falls into the shuffle of the deck behind guys that have more of the boxes checked, and more emphatically checked, fully circled in on the Scantron, rather than his is a little gray.
He is top 100 all time in goals and points in the NHL. Like there's no reason for him to not be in. All right,
Duncan Keith is. Congrats.
Yeah, that's what matters. I mean, not that it doesn't matter that Larmer's in, but
that's
I'm glad that he got the recognition he deserved.
Absolutely. We've now had 2 Hall of Famers on this show.
That's right.
Marian Hossa and Duncan Keith.
More to come. We're going to talk to Ryan Donato on Thursday. Maybe we'll pump him up. Thursday at 2, Ryan Donato.
He'll get the official CHGO bump right to the Hall.
We're going to hit the break zone and talk about the Q with Jérémi Plourde of McKeen's Hockey. Coming up next on CHGO Blackhawks Podcast. What is Sunnyside? We've been telling you about Sunnyside for probably years now. If you're just getting into the cannabis game or you're a longtime veteran, Sunnyside is your one-stop shop for everything you need to elevate your summer. They've got great brands, including my two favorites, like Good News and Mindy's. They've also got Cresco and FloraCal. Wonderful stuff. And the best part about Sunnyside, aside from their amazing locations in Wrigleyville, River North, Champaign, South Beloit, and more, their staff will make you feel totally educated, totally at ease with your buying experience. Whatever you're seeking from the people at Sunnyside, they will help you find it with the highest quality stuff available. So visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases when you enter promo code HICHGO at checkout. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois MedCard holders. And for existing users, use promo code CHGO50 for 50% off one Cresco Labs brand item.
And if you've never used whole body deodorant, this week has been the week to try it out for the first time.
Indeed.
And if you're going to do that, do it with our friends at Mando. Whole body deodorant, safe to use anywhere on your body, including but not limited to your pits, your balls, your thigh folds, your belly button, your butt's crack, and your feet. It was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal body odor was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. They have a lot of great scents like bourbon leather and clover woods. And their starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash or deodorant wipes, and it comes with free shipping. And you get $5 off that starter pack with our code CHGO. Use that at shopmando.com. Again, the code is CHGO. Support our show. Tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando.
And joining us now on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast from McKeen's Hockey, it is Jérémi Plourde. Jérémi, thanks for joining the show, man. We appreciate it.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. We know you are plugged into the entire draft. We're going to get to that with you, too. But your focus is really on the Q, from what we understand. And I know Caleb Desnoyers is a guy who could be there for the Hawks at 3. What have you seen from Desnoyers in your coverage, and what would the Hawks be getting if they drafted him?
Yeah, Desnoyers is a guy I have watched throughout the entire season. I've paid very close attention. I wasn't sold on him at first. I thought the upside might be a little limited, and I think that's still kind of the word that's being around him currently. But I think the more and more I've watched him, the more and more I understood that his game is a lot more complex. Desnoyers is a player who, with the puck, will create pockets of empty space for teammates to go in. He's a play facilitator at an extreme high level. He's an elite playmaker, and just all around, Desnoyers is a player who doesn't really have a true glaring weakness. Defensively, on the penalty kill, he's going to be elite in the NHL. He's one of the most physical, underratedly one of the most physical players in this year's draft, hitting a lot more than a lot of big other names like Porter Martone, Michael Misa, James Hagens, even Anton Frandel. He hits more than these guys. It's not huge flashing hits, but it's efficient physical involvement. Like I said, there's not many big weaknesses. Some might point at his shot, but I'd argue his overall goal scoring instincts are very high end. You know, he knows how to position himself. He's pretty accurate. Maybe the power isn't quite there currently, but there's a lot to like. And then again, the pace might not be at the highest level, but it's definitely good. You know, he can go on a breakaway from time to time, catch a defender off guard with his great reads, great puck work, great stick work, my apologies. I think he's the all-around package, and definitely going to be a top 6 center in the NHL. I think Chicago would have a great player there if they were to pick him.
I mean, he sounds like he has a lot of traits and qualities that another Blackhawks number 3 pick in Jonathan Toews had. I don't know if his ceiling you'd say is that high, but it sounds like one of those players that has every tool in his skill set there that you want. What do you see from him as far as like a player that he kind of plays like a player profile that he compares to, that you could say like at his best this is who he could play like?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if he goes to Chicago, there's going to be tons of parallels drawn to Jonathan Toews. I think myself, watching the Montreal Canadiens a lot, I kind of see some similarities with Nick Suzuki. in the sense that he might not be the most explosive skater, but with the puck, he's so good at drawing pressure towards him, allowing guys like Cole Caulfield to open up in free pockets of space and use their great finishing talent to score goals. Now, Chicago doesn't have a Cole Caulfield. They have better. They have a Connor Bedard. So I think Caleb Desnoyers would be very good with Connor Bedard offensively. And again, same thing with Cole Caulfield. He might not be the best defensive player, but you've got a Nick Suzuki who's there on the penalty kill, who's giving his all every single shift, being there defensively, helping his defense on the breakout and just along the boards. I think Desnoyers does all that and possibly even better. I think you're looking at a guy who's going to play an amazing top six center role. Now, I know Bedard is maybe a center, maybe a winger. They're still trying to figure things out with him. If he's going to be that second line center behind Bedard, I don't think it gets any better than that. The upside is there. It's not 100%, but with the playmaking skills, it's definitely there. I think the big thing you're banking on is the floor. At third overall, you don't really want to mess up your pick, especially that you guys have all these talented forwards and just overall talented prospects in your pool. If you were to pick Desnoyers, I think that's a player who would bring this safe element to and just to round out the prospect pool for the future. I think that's a can't miss type of player.
That's good to hear. I know a lot of the conversation with the Hawks seems to be around him or Anton Frundell. How would you compare the two?
Right. Well, Anton Frundell is also a player I've watched a ton throughout the year. If I were to speak a little bit on Anton Frundell, I think he's an amazing cycle player. He's extremely smart, but in different ways. He's going to play off the board, use his back as a shield, bounce off the boards, and look for a goal-scoring opportunity. He has a much better shot than Desnoyers. But with the puck, I think Desnoyers is a better play creator. He's a better play facilitator. I think Desnoyers has this talent of drawing pressure towards him. He has this talent of poise and playmaking element to his game that Frundell doesn't necessarily have right now. Obviously, Frundell has played in pro level the entire season, so it's a little different. Doesn't have as much space as a guy like Caleb Desnoyers probably has in the QMJHL. I think Frundell is amazing as well. These two guys are similar in the sense that they have a clear path to the NHL. That's what I'm getting to. Frundell has a clear path to the NHL, and he's going to fit wherever you need him. Same with Caleb Desnoyers. Now, the difference, I would say, is Desnoyers is definitely more of a cerebral playmaker type of player. Both are good defensively. I think Desnoyers is possibly a little better, probably going to play the PK role a little more. Frundell has a nasty shot. He's a physical monster. He's just this hard skill guy. Who I think both are going to fit well, but just in different ways. I think they could even complement each other well, but Frundell at 3 also would be an amazing option for sure.
If you were in the GM chair, if you were Kyle Davidson and pick 3 is there, and Schaefer and Misa, however order they go 1 and 2, who are you taking from your for your scouting?
Like you mentioned, Misa probably goes at 2. But first of all, I'd start praying maybe San Jose picks Anton Frundell. There's been this rumor going on that Frundell, it makes sense. Also, Frundell fits definitely well the San Jose Sharks. There's a lot to like with them. I think Michael Misa is this guy who's going to draw he's so skilled defensively, and he's like the ceiling's so high, and I think even the floor is pretty high. But you've got these guys that are very offensively gifted with San Jose, like your Eklunds, your Celebrini, your Will Smith. I think Frundell would round out that core very well, and I think it's realistic. I think Frundell could totally go there. So first of all, I would start hoping that Michael Misa falls to the Chicago Blackhawks. That would be amazing. I think you guys would get a phenomenal player there to play with Connor Bedard. If he's gone, I would go for Caleb Desnoyers right now, but it depends. I think I'm not here to say as like if Bedard should be a center or winger in the NHL. I think only the coaches and the organization know. I think Frundell could be a much better winger with Connor Bedard than Caleb Desnoyers could be. I think Caleb Desnoyers is going to be a second line center, and Chicago has a lot of second line centers potential. They have Sacha Boisvert, who I'm extremely high on in the prospect pool. They have Frank Nazar, who's amazing. I think he's super underrated and could be a center, could be a winger, could be a center. We don't know yet as well. I think if you're looking at a winger, I would look at Anton Frundell. If you think Bedard will be a winger himself, I would look at Caleb Denoy.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sure those are conversations that they're trying to figure out. It's hard to figure out right now if Bedard is or is not a full-time center. I think the 2 years would say maybe not, but there's still room for improvement across the board for him. So it's something they've got to figure out.
Well, we know Caleb had the wrist injuries as well. Is that any sort of a concern going forward, or are those all healed and ready to go?
Well, the word I've been hearing is that Caleb Denoy has been having this sort of problem with his wrist ever since November. And it's pretty impressive to think about and just look at the entire season, look at how much he's dominated the QMJHL, even in the playoffs with this wrist injury. Now, obviously, we all know every single hockey player is never 100%, right? This is a physically taxing sport. Every player will have this sort of nagging injury at some point in their career. It's very interesting to look back at, Stanley Cup finalists and just see how just damaged their body are. I would think that the wrist injury will heal itself throughout the summer. I think, Denoy played a lot of hockey. He went all the way to the Memorial Cup. So he won the QMJHL playoffs. He played a ton of hockey. He ended up going all the way to the Memorial Cup. So he was playing hockey very late in the year, right? He was playing hockey in June and began the preseason very early as well. I think he just had a lot of hockey, and now this break of just, entering the whole draft process and then going on to the future training camp with the NHL team, whether he gets signed or not is not the question. Just overall, the break this summer, I think, will definitely be beneficial for him for his possible injuries over everything. Obviously there's risk, there's probably a ton more that we don't know of. Yeah, the summer will do him good for sure.
Hawks have another pick in the first round, 25th overall, should they use it. A couple of guys that are interesting around that spot. One of them in the queue is Bill Zonin. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, Bill Zonin is a guy who it's impossible to dislike him. He's very interesting in the sense that he just goes, and he's not that good of a skater. It's gotten a lot better throughout the year. I remember last year watching him being very worried about the skating, and it's gotten a lot better just because of the pure athleticism, strength, and just how big of an athlete this guy really is. Maybe the skating isn't technical, but he goes so fast because his legs are so powerful, and it seems like he's just running at lightning speed towards the opposing team. And he's such a good forechecker, so efficient. He's going to be so hard to play against in the playoffs where, the coaches keep telling the players to go as hard as they can. He goes as hard as he can every single game, every single shift. So he's definitely going to be a guy who will be loved no matter where he goes. I think he would fit with Chicago. The Blackhawks usually tend to pick North American players with their higher picks, like the top 4 rounds. I'd say that's something I've noticed over the past few years. I think the percentage is 76% since 2022 or 2021. They tend to really pick North American players who they scout a lot, and I think that's someone they will have an eye on. Just purely, he just goes hard. I think the playmaking is very underrated as well. He's a better playmaker than people probably notice. He's able to perfectly time pass after going so fast to create a turnover. I feel like he knows where every single one of his teammates is on the ice, and he can adapt and adjust his game in split seconds. He's a great playmaker, goes hard. I think that's a player who would fit perfectly on the third line. You've got your Oliver Moores, probably looking to be a third liner as well with Chicago. That's a player I love, who also goes extremely fast. I think him and Bill Zonin possibly paired together would be just a nightmare for the opposing team.
All right.
I like the sound of that. He's a guy that definitely interests me. I mean, and with the Hawks, they got pick at 25 and 34. So depending on how the board plays out, he could still be in that in that range. One other guy I wanted to get your insight on from the Q and Charlottetown is Owen Conrad. I know the Blackhawks have a lot of defensemen in their system, but that's not to say they can't still make some selections. What do you make of Owen Conrad?
Yeah, that's a great point. I've kind of gone through the top teams this year, looking at the entire draft and kind of making a draft plan on who they should draft overall with every single one of their picks. And with Chicago, I did have Owen Conrad as a great option later on in the draft, like in the third round. I think Conrad would fit what they usually go for in the sense that he's, well, not what they usually go for recently, but what they to complement what they usually go for. He is a reliable physical defenseman who has a clear path to the NHL. He might not be the most skilled player, but has just the all-around, well-rounded, reliable game that would be a perfect bottom four pair. Now, whether he's paired on the second or third line is all going to depend on deployment, on coaches, on fits. I can't really guarantee where he's going to be in the NHL or if he makes the NHL, but he has a real clear path towards, being this reliable, hard hitter, hard shooter, very simple kind of defenseman that just logs minutes throughout the playoffs. And yeah, I think we would fit well there. You could pair him with more offensive leaning defensemen. I think that would be ideal because you don't really expect all the offense coming from him by himself. He's more of a complementary guy to this offensively skilled defenseman. But I think that could be a very interesting option towards the later rounds. I expect him to go probably in the third round. Maybe a team really likes him in the second round, but if Chicago has an eye on him, I think third round is probably the ideal place because then if you wait a little too much, he's probably going to be gone.
All right. Jérémi, thanks for your time, man. Great stuff. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
All right, that's Jérémi Plourde of McKeen's Hockey. Good stuff from him. Follow him on Twitter at Jérémi Plourde _ That's JEREMI. Hey, we got a problem right now.
Oh, boy.
Duncan Keith's in Hall of Fame. We are 4 days away from the NHL Draft, and we have 62 likes on his YouTube channel.
Come on.
Like, what are we even doing? Are we just punting? Are we like Kyle Davidson with free agents? We're just punting. We're not even trying anymore. Hit the dang like button. Let's go. We'll be back in 2 minutes
hit triple digits
with more. And I'm going to tell you, I told you last night that I have sold myself on the draft pick I want, and it's probably the lowest shot that the Hawks are going to draft this guy. We'll talk about it next on CHGO Blackhawks. Just like your favorite team needs a home ice advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts. They're going to get you squared away. Ignore the big box stores. They're not what you need when it comes to flooring for your home. It's too important. You want to trust the best. That's why Empire Today is your best bet for a new floor. They live and breathe flooring like everyone, but especially them. And are with you every step of the way. They bring the showroom right to your home so you can see how it's going to look with your furniture in your house, in your space. Very important. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. CHGO listeners, you'll receive a $350 discount when using the promo code CHGO. Yes, you heard me correctly. A $350 discount with code CHGO. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/CHGO for full details.
Let's talk about your next weekend escape, shall we?
Yes, please.
Potawatomi Casino and Hotel in Milwaukee has everything you need in one spot. Thousands of the latest slots and table games. They've got a ton of amazing restaurants and bars to choose from. And if you're feeling fancy or just want a quick bite, they've got you covered. You don't even have to leave the property. Stay in style at their luxury hotel just steps away from what many call the Midwest's best sports book. Right. If you're heading to a ball game this summer, you can start your day right at Potawatomi, hit the sports book, then head out to the game. It's all right there, super convenient. Milwaukee's got a full summer lineup of concerts, festivals, sports, you name it. Potawatomi is the perfect home base for all of it. Potawatomi Casino Hotel in Milwaukee. Your win is waiting. Go check it out. I love getting away from the city sometimes.
Milwaukee's
getting out to
great town.
Milwaukee. It's a great. It's like Chicago, but it's scaled down just
Yeah,
enough.
it's like a shrunk. You drag it from the top corner. Boop.
It's got everything you need. Little escape right there at Potawatomi Casino Hotel.
All right. Welcome back. Good job with the likes. We still need more. Hit those. And here's something you're going to like very, very much. Hear that segue, Steven? You don't hear that stuff on the Bears show. How about $36 to become a diehard for the whole dang year? It is our Make Your Move sale in honor of the NBA and NHL Draft and free agency kicking off this week. Let's take advantage of this. $36 for the year. Yes, you still get a free CHGO shirt. Yes, you still get 20% off all of our merch, all of our events, takeovers, watch parties, golf outings, and the like. By the way, this year's golf outing starring Charlie Meliodas. Come on out. We're trying to convince Alex Vlasic to come too.
Trying hard.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. I'll get more gluten-free Oreos.
Yeah, exactly. So take advantage of this. allchgo.com/intro is the link. Again, $36 gets you your membership for the year. The shirt themselves are about $30 when shipped and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
It's 35.
$35.
This is a $1 proposition.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're basically paying for a shirt and you're getting a membership for free. So take advantage of it. Become a diehard today. Join us here at CHGO. By the way, if you are so inclined, that 20% discount on merch carries across the entire All-City network. So if you got family in Philly or Dallas or Phoenix or Denver, wherever, you can get them gear from those markets or get yourself some.
Yeah.
They got really cool stuff in all those markets. So that 20% is not just Chicago. It's company-wide. So
Love it.
jump on that.
And this week is a great week to jump in and be a diehard with the NHL Draft coming up. NBA Draft tomorrow, right? Or Thursday?
No, it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Yes.
Do they wait?
Cooper
do they do 2 days of the draft?
Flag?
There's only
Cooper
two,
Flag?
There's only 2 rounds.
Yeah, it's just the one.
I thought it was Wednesday and Thursday.
I'm
That
checking.
wouldn't make any sense.
I think it's one day.
Okay.
Let me check.
Cooper Flag is the guy, right?
Yeah, he's the number one pick.
Gonna go number 1, not to the Bulls,
Look, that's
but that's good.
twice this week, buddy.
Jay Hoops. That's your
So they call me.
That's your other Twitter handle.
That's what they call me. That's right. That's a separate membership.
Round
Yeah.
2 is the following day. You were right.
Yeah, so they do 1 round per day. That's great.
That's real dumb.
Great. That's great. How many MVPs have been picked in the second round? Just 1, right? Jokic?
He's the only one I could think of.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
You already knew that. I was just for the viewers, of course.
All right.
Who's this person that you're convinced the Blackhawks won't pick, but you want?
I was just listening to. We are in the year where in the time of year we are just consuming draft, talking to people. It's just endless. Last night I was going through all of our draft conversations that we've had, basically from January with Stephen Ellis to Cam to Chris Peters and on and on and on,
Wheeler,
trying to get cuts for everybody we've talked to, so we're ready for the draft. In that process, I have talked myself into James Hagens for the Blackhawks, and here's why. This is going to sound dumb, but talk about size, talk about height. The dude is just a hockey player. He is a good-ass hockey player that has been a good-ass hockey player his whole life. There's no questions he's going to be good in the NHL. I am no longer, well, I never really was, but I'm especially not hung up on an inch or two of height on James Hagens versus, well, Anton Frundell could be a solid second-line center. He's got a good defensive game. Great. It's the third pick.
Yeah.
Give me someone that's going to make a damn impact. You can go find your second-line center at 25 or wherever you want to do it. And again, if that's the pick, fine. I understand it. Great. If it's Frondell, whatever. If it's Desnoyers, whatever, fine. But to me, Hagens is a guy who checks every box of what you're looking for. Playmaker, scorer, accomplished in the international game, plays for a major program. All the things that you like about a hockey player in this generation, he checks every one of those boxes, and you could have Connor Bedard and James Hagens together for the next decade. Don't be afraid to take a guy. Oh, no, he's only 5'10". So? I don't care. Kirby Dach is 6'5". Guy can't stay on the ice. James Hagens plays available. stud player. That's my guy. The Hawks, I don't think they're going to take him. But that's who, if I'm picking today, if I'm Kyle Davidson, I'm running up to the podium and taking James Hagens without fear.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat of any of the guys that we've been talking about endlessly in the lead up to this to Friday. I'm comfortable with because they all bring their upsides. You can see the cases that I made for all of them at allchgo.com. That's for diehards, part of the draft coverage we got going on this week. With Hagens, I mean, I'm brought back to Barry Trotz's quote a few seasons ago. It says, quote, "I can find you third and fourth line guys, no problem. Go get me some guys that get people out of their seats." That was a quote he had leading into the 2023 draft. And it applies. And I think it applies directly to a guy like James Hagens. He started this draft cycle as the number one prospect in the draft class.
Yep.
And all he did was go out and be a point-per-game player in college, win a gold medal with Team USA at the World Juniors, and be one of the standouts of the draft class.
Yep.
He didn't have a down year whatsoever. The fact that he went from 1 to 3 or 4 on most draft boards isn't an indictment against him and his game and the season he had in his draft year. It's that guys like Matthew Schaefer, Michael Misa, they had extraordinary seasons, or they have extraordinary talents and skills that have presented themselves over the past year and a half, that maybe shined a little brighter than Hagens. And for the fact that he's 5'10 and a half, 180 and change at 18 years old, he's going to grow taller and wider by the time he's 20.
Also,
right?
if he doesn't grow, so get out a ruler and measure an inch, and you're telling me that this
It's usually like
is
the
the
tip of your
difference
thumb to your
between NHL success and failure is this? Get a bigger helmet. What are we talking about?
yeah.
It's so and again, I could see if he's
lifts in his
if he's
skates.
got a reputation for being a perimeter player that won't go to the net, that won't compete, that can't take a hit.
doesn't.
Frank Nazar and James Hagens are similar sized. Did you see any indication from Frank Nazar that he was scared or would get pushed around in the NHL? Do you recall Patrick Kane taking a single hard hit in his entire NHL career that was clean?
Well, just the one that broke his collarbone.
The one that broke his collarbone was a board.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with his size. It was a dirty ass hit.
Yeah, he had an ability to not put himself in bad positions, seeing the game the way he did, moving the way he did. Hagens has those abilities too. Yeah.
Yes.
If James Hagens is the number 3 pick, I'm going to be very happy with it. I'm not going to say, "Oh, no, he's too small." Like they have yet to pick an undersized, quote unquote undersized forward over Kyle Davidson's tenure that I look at and I'm like, I don't think he's going to make it because he's too... Samuel Savoie is what, 5'9"?
Yeah.
I think he's going to get to the NHL and make an impact because of the way he plays. And Brad Marchand is allegedly 5'9".
That's it.
Sidney Crosby is allegedly 5'11".
Further, if you're not sensing it, when Mario says allegedly, he is absolutely not 5'9".
Yeah.
He's closer to 5'6", 5'7".
Alex DeBrincat was allegedly 5'8". Those guys have been able to find their way in the NHL. I forget who it was. Someone took a picture with Sidney Crosby, and they were like, "I'm 5'10", and they were taller than Crosby.
Yes.
And so Sidney Crosby may be listed at 5'11", but I think he's closer to 5'10", maybe 5'9". I don't know. If I ever stand next to him and I'm eye to eye, we'll have our answer. But he's a guy that is not in the 6-foot range, and he is a Hall of Famer. Like there are guys that have been extremely successful, even in the era of the monsters of the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. There were smaller players that made wonderful livings. Martin St. Louis and Paul Kariya were 2 of my favorite players ever when I first got into hockey because they were small. I knew I was going to be small, and I was like, cool. Like, these guys are awesome. I want to be like them.
It is a mindset.
Yeah.
And if you want, I think Marchand is the current example. For you kids watching at home, go find some tape of Theo Fleury. Theo Fleury is 5'6" and would kick your ass to get to the net, and you couldn't do anything about it. Like, it is a willingness. My old buddy Doug Buffone called it the Neanderthal gene. You've got to be willing to go in there, get knocked around, get hit, and having an inch of height doesn't suddenly make you a more physical player. It doesn't suddenly make you, now that he's 6 foot and not 5'11", he can take a hit.
Right.
It's look, I get if you're on the fence about two guys, you feel pretty good about both of them. All right, fine, take the bigger guy, right?
Sure.
But the only thing that James Hagens is lacking to keep him from being maybe the number 1 pick, maybe number 2 pick, possibly number 3 pick, is half an inch. What are we talking about?
Yeah, I honestly think if he was at the combine like 5'11" and a half, I think we'd be talking about him being in the top 3. Locked into it.
The softest player I've ever seen
crazy.
wear a Blackhawks sweater, Radim Verbata, was 6'1", 194.
Another show in the last week where we've besmirched Radim Verbata.
Well, he deserves it. He's fresh in my mind because I'm playing NHL 2K8, and he's on that Blackhawks team. Like, come on! Eric Daze is 6'6", 235. You know what Hawks fans called him when he was here?
Didn't play that way.
Daisy.
Yeah.
Because he didn't play tough despite being huge. Toughness is not measurable by a yardstick or a, what is it called? Tape measure. Thank you.
Yeah. The Gigadees.
It's right here, right?
Brings up Ty Domi. Ty Domi was
That's a different thing.
a small guy.
That's not the Neanderthal gene. That is unfrozen caveman winger.
That is the Neanderthal.
That is a literal Neanderthal.
Yeah.
So that's different. But you're right. It's
there is a willingness and a mentality to play that style. Like when you have to in football, in hockey, like in these, high speed, high contact sports, if you're a smaller player, like if you're going to survive and if you're going to thrive, you have to have the understanding of play like, you have to play like you belong. You can't play scared. You can't play like a small player because you're going to get lost in it. And that was something I had to learn playing hockey and playing football. Was like, if you play to your size, you're going to get murdered out there.
Yes, you are the hitter or you're the hitty.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all there is. Like, so
Dude, Rockney said that.
I don't know. I don't think they're going to take him. If they don't, I'm not going to pretend to be livid or anything like that. But as I'm going through this, this tape last night, listening to all these draft experts we've had on over the last 6 months, they're all raving about Hagens. I'm like, why are we just dismissing that? Because the Hawks have smallish wingers, and then we're talking about 21 picks later. Well, Cullen Potter, that's a Hawks pick. He's small and fat. Like,
right.
Like,
well, because they'll pick their size with the number 3 pick. Who knows? I think if we were to line up the 5 players that are likely going to be there at number 3, I would say Hagens is the second most skilled behind Misa, and Misa's got a 10% chance of being there at number 3. So I think of the guys that are realistically going to be there at 3, I'd say Hagens has the most hockey skill, player for player.
And all this, I'm looking at the Hawks roster right now. All this consternation about the Hawks are too small. There's 4 players on the current roster under 6 foot. Nazar, Bedard, Teravainen, and more.
Teravainen's not 6 foot?
5'11".
Oh, okay.
Slaggert, Reichel, Kurashev, gone. Foligno, Donato, 6 feet. Ryan Green, 6'1". Mikheyev, Dickinson, Bertuzzi, 6'2". Burakovsky, 6'3".
I think that's all true. That's all valid. But I think when you're looking at the guys that matter, the future, the prospect pool, then you look at the top of the list, especially for forwards, and you have Bedard, Nazar, Moore, all sub 6 foot. Then you talk about Vanacker, Boisvert, Spellacy, those are guys that are 6 foot and above.
And you also have
play a little
massive defensemen.
Yeah, you have a redwood basically on your each spot of your blue line. The smallest defenseman is
Wyatt Kaiser. 6 foot 173.
Yeah. That's
You've
not
got
small.
6'8" Crevier, 6'2" Levshinov, 6'4" Murphy, 6'4" Renzel, 6'6" Vlasic. What's Del Mastro?
6'4".
4? Yeah.
And Korchinski's 6'2".
Allen is probably,
6'3".
6 foot, 6'1"?
Allen's like 6'2", 6'3". They're
Yeah,
tall.
like-
Yeah. So, I don't think... I think the size up front in the prospect system is more or less the issue rather than the current roster. Lardis, another guy, 5'10", 5'11". Roman Kanserov is another 5'9", 5'10" guy. So, you want to have a little bit more than that.
Sure, but they're not all going to make it either.
They're not. Of course, they're not all going to make it. And you want your high-end guys that you project to be top. If you have a top 6 of all under 6 foot guys, I think skill only brings you so far.
Sure.
Especially if you're trying to, get into the playoff picture and you see how playoff hockey is played. You got to have a mix of size in there because of the physicality aspect to it. But speed and skill will take you a long way, as we just talked about with Chris Peters yesterday.
Yep.
Regarding, how teams will mimic what the current Stanley Cup champion has done. The Panthers have done it a different way than the Tampa Bay Lightning did it. And the Tampa Bay Lightning did it primarily with speed and skill. Now, they had some big guys, but not all of them. Kucherov's not very big. Braden Point's not that
Kucherov's
big.
tiny.
So, they have guys that played, important roles to go to 3 Cup finals.
He's listed 6 foot. Kucherov.
Win 2 of them. Kucherov. Yeah, I mean, he's not big.
6 foot 180.
Yeah.
So tiny is not correct.
So I think, there's a lot of different ways to get there. Yeah.
Pat in the chat is saying, who's going to dig that puck out of the corner? Brad Marchand, Andrew Shaw, Samuel Savoie.
Those are guys that have done it. Yeah.
Size does not make you affect. Kirby Dach could not win a quarter battle, save his life. Dylan Strome, not great in the corners.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a willingness to go do it. It's not about being big. Again, all things being equal, sure, take the bigger guy. But I think when you're comparing James Hagens and everything he's accomplished and the pedigree there of playing at BC, playing in a World Junior Championships and being a huge part of it, all those sort of things.
Which he's going to do again.
Well, Frondel's played against men, but there were times he disappeared, and I'm not so sure. Desnoyers, I'm not sure of the floor. This is the 3rd pick in the draft. The 3rd pick. We're not talking 7, 8, 9, 10, where it's like, all right, let's roll the dice and see what we get. Maybe it pans out. No.
Right.
To me, Hagens is the surest thing at 3.
Could be.
Don't be afraid to take a big swing. And I feel like, part of that, I do think the main part why they took Levchinov over Demidov last year was looking ahead to this draft where there were really no defensemen in the top 10.
Unless you were winning the lottery, basically.
But also, taking the swing for Demidov, that's a gutsy move. You're saying, you know what? I'm betting on this guy. I'm not afraid of the Russian thing. We'll get him here. He wants to be here.
Right.
Let's sign him. He is the best and most skilled player in this draft. Aside from Misa, and maybe even right next to Misa, is James Hagens. Everybody has said so. Everybody believes it. There's tons of evidence for it. Don't be afraid to take a swing for greatness with the 3rd pick. Because what's the worst case scenario is what with James Hagens? He's not going to bust out.
He's a middle 6 wing at worst. And even then, it's just like, all right, well, that's still very serviceable.
Yes. I'll take 2 Frank Nazars.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think if Hagens were to be the pick, I'd be very excited for the skill that he brings, for sure. I don't think there's any smoke around him being the 3rd pick with the Hawks. A lot of it seems to be centered around Frondel. If Misa's there, he's going to be the pick. That's the only thing I will be 100% certain about with the Hawks.
I want that too.
If this Frondel to San Jose becomes a reality, 100% certainty they're taking Michael Misa.
All right, that went longer than I planned on. We meant to get to some mailbag questions, so we're going to get to one here, and we're going to make it our Taking the Temp of the day. Taking the Temp is presented by your trusted local experts at Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, plumbing, and electric, visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com. This is from King Tanner. What if Misa falls to 3? Is that concerning for anyone? We all hyped up Misa all year to be the 2, even 3 pick. Now we're hearing Desnoyers or whatever, and possibly Frondel to go higher. Is Misa still a top choice, or should we be considering Martone or someone else? Oh, no. I think if what San Jose would be doing there, if they take Frondel or whoever they're going to take, it would be a fit pick. They've got Will Smith. They've got Celebrini. So they want to pick a guy who might fill an exact need of that number 2 center for them. That feels like drafting for fit more than drafting for talent. I don't think if he falls to 3 that it's any indication that Misa's bad or losing favor, because I think a lot of people when they saw the news were like, whoa, really? They would do that? And then it's kind of boiled down over the last couple of days of like, oh, probably not.
I mean, I think that's where you're kind of getting into a spot where, and all these teams are going to do that as this week kind of comes to a close, is like have their final, scouting department meetings and figure out, okay, who's on their board, how do they order them, all the scouts from, the European scouts, North American scouts, college guys, Russian scout, they all come in and, lay out, here's how we feel about these players. They fight for the guys that they believe in from their regions, and usually teams will come to a consensus, and it could just be a situation where the Sharks through their meetings might feel more certain that Anton Frondel is the guy that they feel like fits, like you said, their system and what they need and the style that they want to play than Michael Misa does. And if it does, I feel like that just only benefits the Blackhawks, because we're not talking about a Shane Wright situation where he was for 2 years like the number 1
everyone knew it
prospect, and you go into that
lose
draft
tonight for Wright was kind of
and you go into that draft, it was like the day of, they were like, oh, he might fall, and then he went down to 4. So like, I don't think we're talking about a situation like that. I think we're talking about a situation where take your pick, 1 or 2, Misa and Schaefer. I think that's a consensus thought. And now you throw in Frondel potentially being in the top 3 as the number 2 pick. Every caveat that I've seen from, Scott Powers, Ben Pope, how they've kind of assessed things, who they've talked to behind the scenes, and the sense that they get from the organization, every draft caveat with number 3 has been if Misa's not there.
If Misa's gone, right.
So on and so forth.
Yes.
So that to me says if he's there at 3, like Davidson should be, well, he can't sprint to the podium now because it's decentralized, but he should be,
log onto the Zoom quickly.
Calling in the pick as soon as they're on the board, if that's the case, and taking him.
There's a comment from Backhand Sauce I want to get to real quick. Up a little bit there. It says, are you guys hearing anything about the Hawks offering the 3rd plus for Peterka? So Frank Saravalli's been all over this. Basically, the Hawks were it sounds like the Hawks were trying to get J.J. Peterka for the 3rd pick. I'm sure there's other pieces involved. It'd probably be 3 for Peterka and 9, whatever it might be. Throw in Korchinski or whatever. But what is the understanding is that Buffalo wants immediate help, and the Hawks can't offer them the immediate help they need.
Right. They don't want futures.
Right. And I don't think, what about Connor Murphy? If they're trading Peterka, they probably want someone better than Connor Murphy.
And they probably want a forward.
If they're going to make this happen, it would probably take a 3rd team. You probably have to get make it a 3-team trade somehow.
Maybe, yeah.
But like a lot of people have pointed out, the only team in the NHL that is trying to get worse is Pittsburgh. And their assets are so old.
Right.
Like, it's even like Rust is like 33, right? Like, there's a lot of nice like rental pieces there, like come the deadline. I think that's probably where Pittsburgh will be most active.
Yeah.
But there's just not a lot of teams selling right now. So to find a team that's going to give up a NHL asset for a pick is very difficult. So I think that's why maybe a couple weeks ago we're like, yeah, the Hawks might trade these picks. Now it seems a little bit less likely, but you never know. You never know.
We'll see. I'm excited for the next couple of days leading up to the draft. See what shakes out Friday's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll be live during the first round on Friday. Saturday, we'll be doing a reaction show, but we're going to be here through the entire draft. We'll be jumping in Discord, jumping on Twitter, whatever we need to do to react as things come down. And a reminder, Thursday at 2, Ryan Donato will be on the show. We are off tomorrow because of our Saturday show, so keep that in mind. So next time we talk to you, it will be Thursday at 2 o'clock with Ryan Donato right here on the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.